we need to talk about the next 4 years. We need to talk about the election. Okay. And I'll throw this out there. I am not here to restate what has already been stated. We know what happened. Okay. We know that Donald Trump is the next president of the United States. Fact. I'm also not here to talk about the why it happened. Okay. You want to debate about what Kamala could have done better or what Donald Trump actually did really well? It's a different conversation. I'm not here to talk about either of those things. Okay. What happened, and it is now our present reality. And it will become a much more focused, much more serious present reality come January when he's inaugurated. Again. I'll be perfectly honest. I went through a bit of a spiral after that. I went through a bit of a depression spiral. I'm telling you, I'm giving you that little peek into my life and exactly what it was like. I was practically dead to the world for the next 2 days after that. Because I am peering into my crystal ball on what I think a second Trump presidency is going to be like and what it means for people like me, for many people like us that are in this channel right now. And it scares me. It does. It genuinely scares me. And I know that every 4 years, somebody has that reaction of, well, if this president gets elected, well, I'm moving to Canada or I'm moving to England or whatever. Okay. And for the most part, never actually happens, right? Because people aren't that serious about it. I feel like this time around, more people are serious, but don't realize the complications with doing so and how difficult it is to emigrate to a different country. It's one thing moving to a different state. It's another thing entirely moving to a different country. And now you are the immigrant. That's not to say that I didn't have those thoughts cross my mind, because I did. My parent company is Canadian. It would not be difficult for me to get Canadian citizenship. As far as what that means for my actual career path, different story. But it's crossed my mind. It's not to say that we won't get there, but, it's something that's floating around in the back of my head. But I'd like to think that I wasn't overreacting to anything, that I had the appropriate response to the coming second Trump presidency. But I honestly don't know. I don't have a clue. None of us have a clue, right? None of us have a clue what's going to happen. But the thing that I actually want to talk about is kind of what happens next. I've been saying for months that it would not surprise me if Donald Trump wins. It's not that far out of the realm of possibility. He did it once. Why could he not do it again? It's entirely possible. And when he won, yes, I was heartbroken. I was a bit devastated, but I wasn't surprised. What I am surprised by is that we are in a place, in a cultural moment in time where somebody like Donald Trump can win the presidency, where a person like Donald Trump can be the leader of the free world, hold the ultimate seat of power in the United States. That's the surprising part. It's also the most heartbreaking part. And my response to this, I had to legitimately sit down and think about what was actually upsetting me about everything. Because there were a lot of things that were upsetting me about it. And I will get there in a moment about what was actually upsetting me, because it does lead into a larger point. But I think the fact that a person like Donald Trump can win the presidency speaks more about us than it does him. And I'm serious about that. I think it says way more about us as a society, and I'm not singling out Trump voters for that. I think it says more about us as a society of Democrats and Republicans and Green Party and Libertarians and everybody that Donald Trump can win. I think it says so much about us and how divided we are on everything. Actually everything. and how wide the chasm is between the groups. Now, granted, this is mostly talking in extremes, and I understand that. But apply it to anything that you want to. Okay? That the United States in 2024, as far as I can see and as far as I know, the gap between the wealthy and the poor has never been bigger than it is right now. In 2024, the gap between what I'll call opposing ideologies, be that theological or social or political, has never been bigger. This is me using my eyes. I do not have data to back this up. This is me just speaking into what I observe. Okay? So don't be out there accusing me of making sweeping statements and, oh, this dummy doesn't know what she's talking about. I'm speaking from what I observe, and I hope that I am wrong about it. But what I see is that at this point in time, people find it difficult to meet in the middle about anything. And so when you have polarizing figures like Donald Trump, that resonates with people who are getting further and further and further to an extreme. So when I say it says more about us than it does him, he's just taking advantage of a very vulnerable place and time in our history. That's truly all I mean about it. I said for a while, I've been in management positions in my various jobs for, 10 plus years. And I've always held this philosophy that you have to know what people are going to respond to. If you want to motivate people to be the best that they can and do the thing that you want them to do, you have to know how to motivate them. And some people need you to hold their hand and help them, and you should do that. Some people need a swift kick in the ass, and you should do that too. A guy like Donald Trump knows how to enable his base. He knows how to get them to do what he wants them to do. And so put this umbrella over the rest of this, whatever this is, this speech, this diatribe, this rant, whatever. That this is not an indictment of Donald Trump voters. Okay? It's not. Not the enemy. It's more just, again, me speaking from what I notice, what I observe. And there's nothing that any of us can do to change that right now. Okay? Again, we know what happened. We know Donald Trump's going to be the president. We can't change that. There's nothing we can do. Check that. There's nothing legal that we can do to change that. I do not condone illegal acts to get your way. That is one area where the president-elect and I differ. C'est la vie. And I've been paying attention to the reasons that people have been talking about why they voted for Donald Trump. And they are varied. They are vast. Some people voted for Donald Trump because he simply was not Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. And that's it. That's a perfectly valid reason to vote for somebody, because you want something different. You didn't like how the last person did it, and so you want to swing to the other side of the aisle. Okay, I get that. It's the prototypical pendulum swing that we go through every couple election cycles of, oh, the Republicans have been in power too long. It's time to give the Democrats a try. And no, we're not happy with this anymore. Back to the Republicans. It's what happens. The irony being that the most satisfactory place to be, if people would realize it, is in the middle. It's not the point. So some people end up voting for him because he's not Joe Biden. He's not Kamala Harris. That's factual. And I will give them credit for that. Donald Trump is not, in fact, a different person. Some people end up voting for him because their personal value system aligns with him much more. And I am of the firm belief that you should vote your conscience. You should vote for the person that most closely represents your value system. Okay? And again, this is not an indictment on Trump voters. It's merely saying that if people voted for Donald Trump, their value system is more closely aligned to him, an actual criminal. let's not forget this, an actual convicted criminal, their value system is more closely tied to him than somebody else. Okay? Some people end up voting for Donald Trump because they're sick of lifelong politicians and they think the system is corrupt. Guess what? You're right. Guess what? Donald Trump helped create that system, and now he's taking advantage of that system. They want somebody who's not a politician. They want a businessman because they think, oh, he's going to be so much better. He's going to trim the fat. He's going to clean house. He's going to drain the swamp, as he was saying. And that's what they want. Okay, I get it. I understand. And some people end up voting for Donald Trump because there are so many reasons. I could go on and on and on. I don't need to sit here and justify every single reason that people would vote for Donald Trump. Just to say, I understand that they did. And I understand how it is that they got there. Here's basically what I come to realize. I think we all know this on some level. I think that we, the American people, vote selfishly. I think we do. I don't know that a ton of people are going to fight me on that. Self-included, by the way, okay? As much as I want to sit here and pretend like I'm not part of the problem and that I'm looking out for everybody's best interests, at the end of the day, I'm going to vote for the person who makes my life better. And yes, I do my very best to keep in mind how the person I vote for, their policies are going to affect other people who are decidedly not me. And again, don't mistake this for me getting up on a soapbox. This is just the internal battle that I have with myself every election cycle. Okay? But I feel like we've turned a very particular corner in American politics of voting, looking out for number one. Plain and simple. Let's be perfectly honest with ourselves, okay? I think that the average person in America, their world, their bubble, barely extends beyond their front door. They're going to look out for themselves, their spouse if they have them, significant other, children, parents, whatever. Like that's their world. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And I say barely outside their door because that world also might extend to the people that they feel closest to. If you're a business owner, maybe you have your employees' best interests in mind. Maybe your friends that you invite over, that you invite into your world. That's how it gets barely beyond your front door. But by and large, I would say that most people, world is wrapped up barely beyond their front door. So it's not surprising at all that they vote in their own self-interests. Do I think it should be a thing? Absolutely not. But it is a thing right now. All that to say, let me highlight this point by I worked with a guy, a contractor I used in Cleveland, who it was the night before the first debate between Trump and Kamala. And there was a radio ad about the debate coming up, and I was getting on a plane that night, and so we just got to chit-chatting about it, blah, 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 blah. And he didn't even know that the debate was taking place. He's like, oh, yeah, so it's probably between Trump and Biden, right? Like, no. He didn't even know that Joe Biden wasn't the nominee anymore. He had no clue. Because that's what his world is. And I'm not going to crap on the guy in that moment like, oh, you're so uninformed, you should... No. I understand. And so all that to say, knowing what I know about people, their primary priority is making sure that their life is better. And for a lot of Americans, that boils down to one thing. Money. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Because people need to have money in order to pay rent, to eat, pay their bills, get themselves to and from work, so on and so forth. That has become the ultimate driving factor in all of this. And that's why you saw such a hyper focus on the economy from Trump voters. Like, that's what they were concerned about. They were convinced that Joe Biden ran a worse economy than Donald Trump did. Numbers be damned. That's what they thought. That's what they felt. And they saw gas prices going up and egg prices going up, so on and so forth, and they were convinced that Donald Trump was better for the economy, and they were willing to accept that, and maybe, or maybe not, know what all else came entailed with it. And this is kind of the rub where I would love to actually lay into Trump voters. I'm not going to, but I would love to. Because in my mind, somebody comes to me and says, I voted for Donald Trump because he's better for the economy. And so at that point, I want to take the gloves off and say, great. So what you're essentially telling me is that your priority is to make sure that your gallon of milk is $3, that your Starbucks, whatever the hoo-ha drink that you get, is $5 instead of $6. That is your priority over the fact that, I don't know, women don't have rights over their own bodies in many states. That's your priority over the fact that, I don't know, LGBTQ people still don't have rights or as many rights in several states. That's your priority over the fact that, Donald Trump means to seriously enact the largest deportation ever, knowing that he's going to tear apart millions of families, and also it's going to have an extremely adverse reaction on our economy that you so desperately love. That's your priority. That you want life to be just a little bit cheaper for you, and you don't care that it comes at the cost of the well-being and the rights of other people. This is what I want to say. I won't, because I'm not that bitch. But this is what I want to say to them. It bothers me. But here's the thing. Pete, I know you talked about this the other night too. You want to enact real change? It starts locally. It starts small. That's what you have to do. You cannot live under the illusion that a president is going to fix all of your problems. That's the same dumb mindset that the right job is going to fix all of my problems, that the right girlfriend or boyfriend is going to fix all of my problems, that if I go viral for something funny and or stupid that I say, that it's going to fix all of my problems. Because guess what? For every solution that you have, for every good thing that you add, there is consequence to it as well. There will be bad things that accompany it. Your problems don't disappear, they shift. That's just the way the world works. Everybody is waiting for this wonderful, ideal set of circumstances that never comes, because we are a broken people. We are a broken world where nothing is ever perfect. So you want to enact change, start small, and do it locally. Pay attention to who's running for mayor in your city. Pay attention right down to use the dumb example from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, pay attention to who's running for your local comptroller, okay? Pay attention to this stuff, because they are the ones that are making decisions that hit way closer to home for you than the President of the United States. That doesn't mean don't pay attention to it. You should also be paying attention to the policy of the people running for senator, for representative, for governor, for all of this. You should be paying attention to these things. And you should be active in voting for these things. That's one of the things that I've changed in my adult life. That I recognize that local politics and local policy is way more effective for me than national, than federal. Federal still has its hands in my pockets. Let's not kid ourselves, okay? But by and large, state and local is where most of the change you're going to be able to enact is. Here's the point that I've been laboriously trying to get to. My typical response in times of stress has been to shrink. It's been to retreat. Not run away, though that has happened once or twice, but to retreat. Because, I can't be around anybody. I have a lot of thoughts. I need to figure out what it is that I really feel, what I'm going to say, how I'm going to treat other people before I do something stupid and ruin a relationship along the way. So I tend to retreat. I've gotten better about that over the years, but it's also usually pretty temporary. Like the longest stress period I had in my life was a year. It was last year. That's a whole nother story I can tell you at another time. But by and large, the last year was the worst year of my life. Adult life for sure. And as much as I wanted to retreat, and I did at times, I still came around every once in a while. I still poked my head up, say, hey, how's everybody doing? Can anyone talk right now? And I had to sit and I had to think about what my response would be this time. Because what we're looking at is the next 4 years of who the hell knows, genuinely. I hope, above all hopes, that Donald Trump in his second presidency shows me that the federal government is ineffective and that he can accomplish none of the things that he set out to do. That's what I hope for, okay? So that all of the fears that I have in this big boogeyman, big orange boogeyman, he disappears and I never have to deal with him again. I hope that's what happens, but in the event that it does not, and that he is able to actually do some of the things that he intends to do, I gotta do something. And I can't afford to retreat. I can't afford to fall back into myself. I can't afford to run away. I can't afford to be silent. I can't afford anymore this idea that you can't talk about politics and religion and immigration and economics. You can't talk about these things in polite company because it's a social faux pas. We shouldn't be talking. It's bad etiquette. Don't talk about. No, absolutely not. Not anymore. Because in a time where I can choose to be afraid, I can choose to be a recluse, I can choose to be silent, whatever other adjectives that you want to throw in there. I'm choosing none of these. Instead, what I'm choosing to be for the next 4 years is a fucking problem. I'm everyone's fucking problem. Pete, I'm your problem. Jack, I'm your problem. Robot, I'm your problem. ABSP, I'm your problem. All of you, I'm your problem now. Not in a mean way. Because being mean about it, being a bitch about it, doesn't actually get you anywhere. It's inflammatory and it's only causing more issues. As nicely as I can, I'm gonna be the biggest fucking problem. Should I disappear? No. In fact, you're gonna see more of me. You're gonna hear a lot more of me. I will make sure that you can't ignore me. So if I somehow end up being the only trans person that some of these Trump voters know, I will make sure they cannot ignore me. And I will make sure that along with that, as much as I have to fight against my basic desires to enact revenge and to treat people like they have treated me, the best way for me to go about this is to combat ignorance, whether it's willful or not, is to kindly get in some people's faces and make them recognize what's actually happened. Make sure it hits close to home. Because for a lot of people that I know that voted for Trump, I grew up in church with these people. And they think, honestly, a lot of them still think that I am who I was 20 years ago. Guess what? I'm not. And they need to see that their actions have consequences. And that somebody who was on their side, who was part of their tribe, who was part of their community, is actually being affected by the person that they put in office. It's really difficult, and I know it's going to be difficult to try to walk this line between being a fucking problem, being in people's faces, and still being gracious with them, and not accusatory, and not coming down on them, not judging them. But honestly, unless I hear better, unless I hear otherwise, the best way that I know how to combat ignorance is with education. And you have to be faced with the reality that your actions have consequences, that there are real people dealing with the consequences of your actions, of your worldview, of your vote, and you need to see it. And for the people that are willing to listen, I will gladly talk with them. I will sit down with them one-on-one in a forum. I'll get on any podcast. I'll do whatever I have to do to make sure that people understand that these are real human beings that are being affected by this. Game's up. It is. It's not a fight. It might come to that, but it's not. Not yet. People want to ignore the silly little problems that they have. They just want all the people to go back where they came from. You shouldn't even need to get an abortion if you're being absent and not having sex. Trans people are mutilating their bodies. Okay. That's a very wonderful thing for you to say from your most likely middle-class white man experience from your life. Congratulations. You have fewer problems, fewer inherent problems existing in the United States than many of us. I'm happy for you. Genuinely, I am. You think I want this? Think I want this? You think I want to be marginalized for the rest of my life? You think I want an uphill battle for healthcare for the rest of my life? You think I want to be criticized and victimized and judged by lawmakers, the same lawmakers and the same voters who are covertly, secretly sending me messages wishing they could have a one-night stand with me? You think I want that? Really? I gotta be honest, I will probably end up slapping the next person, the next middle-class white guy who comes up to me and says, it's all gonna be okay. If he was gonna destroy the country, he would have done it 4 years ago. You're blowing this out of proportion. This doesn't actually apply to anybody. The best, and by best, I mean worst I got, was somebody who sent me a DM basically to the effect of, it's not like you're being marched to the gulag. Come on. Nobody's being erased. Nobody's being canceled. You just need to chill out. It's all going to be fine. I did not say anything back to this person. I should have, but I didn't. Anyway. This is just me. Okay? If you get anything from this, fantastic. If you feel motivated to do something, great. Join me. Do whatever. It doesn't even have to be for trans people. It can be for anybody. Anybody who's going to eventually be victimized by a Trump presidency. It can be for anybody. Any marginalized people group. I hope you do. I hope you do something. What it looks like for me, I'm still kind of fleshing that out, but I know I need to get involved here locally. I need to get involved with some advocacy groups. I need to get the message out. I need to do something to help educate other people. So I'm still kind of figuring out what that looks like for me. Don't worry, nothing on this channel is going to change. This is still for me to be silly and be bad at video games and take a shot of liquid misery whenever somebody sends me the right amount of money. Like, these things are not going to change. On other social media platforms, I don't know, maybe. Might be changing. Maybe that's the way people don't ignore me or can't ignore me. It's if I'm constantly pumping out content and then it gets shared and you can't not see my face and you can't not hear my words. I don't know. The only thing that I really want from everybody, okay, and this is an encouragement, just be there for each other, whatever form that takes. I promise you that humanity is so much stronger together than we ever are separate. That's why I'm convinced, and that's why I vote the way that I do, that I don't really care how bad the economy is. I care, but not at the expense of creating a social atmosphere and an environment that is healthy for everyone to exist in, where nobody has to worry about looking over their shoulders because of X, Y, and Z. Where nobody has to worry if somebody in a bar is going to get drunk and grab their arm because they have grown up thinking that it's an acceptable way to treat women. Nobody should have to look over their shoulder for anything. Guess what? If that means that my rent goes up by $100, okay, I'll figure it out. I will. And if I don't have to figure it out, maybe I can help somebody else figure it out. Maybe I can help support somebody else that way. That's the kind of world I want to see. Help your friends. Be there for your friends. Be good people. Because even if you can't enact any political change, you can sure as hell enact some social change. One person. Start with one person. So, I intend to do whatever I can to help support all of you over the next 4 years. Please let me know, whatever that may be. Please let me know what you need. And if I can, I will help. That's my promise to you. Because Donald Trump is not better than us. He isn't. And I will not let him draw more lines of division between me and the people close to me over some unnecessary bullshit. So, there's that.